Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rudy John, and today we talk to Madison Guinn. We talk all about her love for jiu-jitsu, being a coach, and her competing at the Sumo World Championship in Tokyo. You can also support Madison in her journey by going to her GoFundMe. We will put it up on the show notes, and obviously we'll put it all over our social media as well. Please support her because we get into it, but she got into sumo wrestling just for fun. Now she is a champion, a national champion, so our first national champion sumo wrestler. But also, you know, women cannot be professional sumo wrestler champions in Japan, but obviously on this level, she's doing the exact equivalent. So support her in her journey. Make sure she gets there. So also, speaking of supporting, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. Every week comes out Tuesdays and Thursdays with our shows, and it has even more information about our guest and a little upcoming as to what's going on with your favorite podcast all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Madison Guinn. I would like to welcome to the show Madison Guinn. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. So, what is your earliest memory of martial arts?
My earliest memory of actual sanctioned martial arts would be high school wrestling. I started when I was 15, and I guess my earliest unsanctioned memory of martial arts would be wrestling on the trampoline with my brother and my cousins.
Yeah, I saw that you wrestled in high school, and as much as the women's amateur scene is getting bigger and better and getting more attention, I imagine, you know, it's still a little rough in the high school. What was your wrestling scene like for the women in high school?
So, that's a great question. Women's wrestling has only recently gotten into NCAA in like the last maybe 3-4 years. It really started picking up steam right about when I graduated. But when I graduated, it was only WCWA, which is Women's Collegiate Wrestling Association. So they didn't have the backing or the funding that NCAA had. And so their scholarships were like super low, and they weren't at hardly any public schools. So if you wanted to wrestle for women, you had to go to a private school, and your scholarship was looking like $6,000 to $10,000 a year, which doesn't even make up the difference of public to private school. So, when I was wrestling, it looked like you either, you know, wrestled in high school and then that was it, or you wrestled in high school and you looked like you were probably going to be an Olympian and then you went to college and wrestled. But, I mean, unless your parents are paying for college, you better have a prospective future in wrestling to be paying for the college to do it. So I decided to stop in high school, after high school, and then I found jiu-jitsu, luckily, which was cool because I could just use my wrestling in that and build on that.
Yeah, I saw a couple of videos of you in tournaments for BJJ, and your takedowns look like very wrestling takedowns. And I was like, oh, that's not a normal BJJ takedown.
Right. I love takedowns. I hate guard pulling. So anytime a girl is standing with me, I always try to get a good takedown.
That makes sense. Now, I saw you went off to college, and so did you get a degree in criminal justice?
I did, yeah, at Sam Houston. It's one of the best in the South. It is the best criminal justice in the South.
How did that come about? Because was that always an interest for you? And like, I guess, what does the future look like with your criminal justice degree?
Yeah, so honestly, my original plan before I ever stepped foot in a wrestling gym was to do ROTC all 4 year of high schools, which is like a junior ROTC. It's like a mock military class. That actually, if you enlist after high school, you end up being like 2 pay grades higher, which is kind of cool. But I really wanted to be an officer in the Air Force, so I planned on just going and getting a degree that I was interested in and that was not difficult. And criminal justice is really interesting to me. I've always liked, like serial killer stuff and crime. I've always thought it was interesting. It's an easy A in a class that's like, you know, there's always going to be crime. So once you get a criminal justice degree, you're kind of set on having some sort of decent career. So that's why I went with that. But once I started wrestling, my path definitely changed. I decided I didn't want to go to the Air Force anymore at all. And I wanted to try to see about what fighting was about.
It kind of noticed, I mean, just going through your Instagram, it does seem like that's kind of way, things went for you, where it was more, okay, I love competing, I love training, I love all of this. And then when I saw that you graduated with criminal justice, it kind of just threw me for a loop. I was like, well, that's interesting for like a side thing to do. And I mean, you kind of, it's just a lot to put on one plate at once.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult to juggle like full-time training and still being a student and getting all my things done that I needed to and still working a job as well. But at the end of the day, like you are guaranteed to make more money in life if you have a degree. So, I just decided to kind of hunker down for 4 years and get that, at least a bachelor's degree. And even though I'm not using my degree right now in a law office, I don't think I would have maybe even gotten a chance to be at the job I'm in if I didn't have a degree, because I have no law background. So the degree definitely helps always.
Right. Now, how do you try to find balance with life and with so many activities going on?
Man, it's hard, but you really just have to say no to a lot. A lot of family gatherings and friendly gatherings and things like that would interfere with like training. And you really just have to get a set schedule that's pretty much the same every week that includes, as long as you get your for me, my 40 hours or 50 hours of work in, and then make sure that I still get my training at least, 5-6 days a week.
What do you do for yourself that's kind of a break from everything else?
For myself, it's like hard. I like to cook. Cooking is cool.
That's nice.
Yeah. I like to, I say no to a lot of friend activities, but I still make time to hang out with my friend and my family. I always like to just go do things, be active.
No, I'm the exact same way. That makes sense. Now, you've had 2 actual MMA fights, but you seem to have primarily focused on jiu-jitsu. Is there a preference, or just the way the fights have come to you?
Yeah, there is a preference, and it's MMA, and it's so sad that I only have 2 fights right now and that I've had to focus on grappling. But as much as grappling is really cool and everything, I've been doing it the longest, and I really want to be punching and kicking people. So girl fights are hard to make and hard to keep, and it takes like months to even get a card on, and then once you have a card on, they either say no to the fight or they say yes, and then 3 weeks out they drop out for some random reason. It's really hard to keep girl fights. So that, along with injury, has been the main thing that's kept me from fighting for so long.
Now, as much as we're seeing a huge spotlight on more women's MMA, which I think is amazing, like this past weekend, as we're recording last night, Holly Holmes losing by tap out, like, I mean, that's a main event right there, and there was no title on the line. So that is showing, and what Amanda Nunes has done with her career, which she's just retiring. What does the women's MMA scene look like down in Houston or down in, other places in general that aren't, let's say, Invictus or UFC or even Bellator or anything bigger like that most people would see on a regular basis?
Yeah, man, the MMA scene in Houston for women is really good. Especially even at my gym alone at War. We have a girl who is about to be on Dana White's Contender Series, Rain Guerrero, and I'm telling you, like, I don't know a lot of female UFC fighters in 125 class that I think could stand a chance against Rain. I mean, she is a monster, so just like, and she's undiscovered, you know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people even understand who she is or who people like, for example, Brittany Cloudy, she trains over at, Military.
I talked to her recently,
She's a beast, oh my God. And so she's another one that's undiscovered, you know what I mean? Like, these are undiscovered Houston talent, and that's just 2 to name a few, so, and the amateur scene, even that, like, Houston fighting has always been big, but it's just getting bigger, and I've seen a lot of talent in the Houston amateur women's MMA recently. It's crazy.
Yeah, I talked to Brittany. She's absolutely amazing. I've talked to Mike Jackson down there, and he preaches all day about what is happening down in Houston and in Texas in general. And I love that the fight scene not only in Houston, but obviously up here in the DFW area as well, is
Yeah.
becoming so much bigger and so much better. And like, you know, I think a lot of people unfortunately skip over Texas when it comes to looking at talent,
Right.
which they shouldn't. I mean, I think the number one gym or MMA gym is out here in Dallas. Like, so it's, and obviously Fury is killing it down in Houston also.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people. I mean, shit, Derek Lewis is on the map, but also, you know, things with him get hotter than everybody else. So that also makes people want to pay more attention to the guy. But he was fighting for the heavyweight title, and he came out of Houston, and, you know, there's so much great talent coming out of that area that it is, it's good that they're getting more of the spotlight, but I do think people need to, not skip over what's happening in Texas.
Yeah, another one to look out for too. She just recently moved here from Brazil. Hayane dos Santos. She's a Invictor fighter, atomweight world champ. She is killing it, dude. I think she's gonna get a call from the UFC pretty soon. And that's another one to definitely be looking out for. But people are definitely sleeping on a lot of the Houston fighters. I swear, Texas, I think, is about to be on the map for MMA.
For sure, without a doubt. I mean, I know for the longest time, it was the Pacific Northwest, and then obviously Colorado and New Mexico have had their gigantic stamp, you know, what they're doing down in Florida, obviously, but, you know, Texas is very much growing and getting more on the map. A lot of people to take notice of.
Agreed.
Now, you have a GoFundMe set up to help you get to the 2023 Sumo World Championship over in Tokyo, Japan. And this is happening in October. The story behind this is awesome. Please tell us more about this, because I know sumo wrestling is actually becoming slowly more popular. There's definitely a team and people who do shows up here in the DFW area, and then you were talking about doing this down in Houston. Please tell us this entire story, because this is awesome.
Thanks. So I actually got interested in sumo wrestling because my current MMA coach, Jeremy Mahone, over at Warwick, he loves sumo wrestling. Like, I've heard my assistant coach Adam talking about, like, oh, we go to Vegas and he'll be in the hotel room playing sumo wrestling. Like, that's what he's watching in his free time. Like, he loves sumo wrestling. And so he had, a couple of years back, actually, he had kind of like a mock sumo tournament in-house. And, all the guys were getting so upset because they were dropping to a knee for shots and getting disqualified. And they were like, they couldn't understand. They're like, but I took them down. It's like, yeah, but you dropped your knee. You can't touch your knee. So to me, it was really cool to watch this entirely different concept of wrestling. But it's very much wrestling. You know, like, it's still, freestyle takedowns, folk style takedowns, Greco. It's a lot of Greco, really. Because you can drop down to the leg, but when you drop down to the leg, you put yourself at risk of, like, getting your head pushed down, and then you put your hand on the mat, and then you're out. You know, because the only thing that can drop on the mat is, like, the bottoms of your feet. So I kind of kept it in the back of my mind. I was like, this is really cool. I have a goal to try every single martial art, like, at least once, except all of the karates. I don't want to do those.
Why?
But there's too many quacks, I think, in the U.S. that teach it, and I don't.
Gotcha.
I don't want to go waste my time at these karate gyms. I just want to learn, like, I'm already doing Taekwondo, which is amazing. But I just want the other ones, like judo. I want to try I already did catch wrestling. I want to try beach wrestling. I think that would be really cool. So
I've heard of that, but.
Oh yeah, no, they have beach wrestling all over the U.S. It's actually USA Wrestling sanctioned.
What?
It's yeah, it's cool. And you know what's whack is I actually just saw an ad on Instagram, or not an ad, a post by USA Beach Wrestling, and they're having a tournament in Fargo, North Dakota. I don't know.
That makes no sense. There's no beaches.
I don't know of any beaches.
I don't think people know how maps work. Like, that makes no sense.
I think it's in, like, a lake. I don't know. But
if it's in snow, maybe that would. Yeah. Okay.
So if they come to Houston, not Houston, if they come to Galveston or Texas or something, I'm there. I'm doing it. But I just happened, like, a couple years passed, and I just happened to hear something about sumo, and I got interested. This is back in, like, November. And I just Googled, like, sumo tournaments, you know, near me.